Too often I hear that people have low energy, hormone challenges, depression, and other emotional challenges in addition to struggling to lose weight, and doctors are not giving their patients answers to these problems. If we are lucky, maybe we'll go to the doctor and discover that our thyroid is having challenges, but not all of the thyroid hormones are being evaluated. So therefore, many thyroid challenges are not being diagnosed. Today we're going to discuss with my good friend Jill Norris, who is a registered nurse and hair tissue mineral analysis expert at Iodine Ionic Minerals, which is a mineral company that I personally use for my clients, the symptoms of different thyroid conditions, how to discover these on a hair tissue mineral analysis, and solutions for how to address these mineral imbalances that are found. So you will have a greater understanding of root causes and solutions to your thyroid challenges. Hi, this is Dr. Jacqueline, and today we have Jill Norris back with Iodine Minerals, and we are going to talk about hair analysis and thyroid challenges. So thanks, Jill, for coming back and talking to us about all this.
Thank you for having me.
So let's go ahead and dive right in. Last time we talked about the adrenals, which if you haven't watched that already, I highly recommend watching that video. If you're going to do any type of hair testing, it's definitely a very complicated thing to understand. So you can't just look at these minerals for face value. You have to understand these ratios and read between the lines. So before doing a hair test, I highly recommend watching our series of videos on the hair test. And we have the Cerebral Detox program here to be able to be coached along your health journey until you get to a baseline of health. And at that point, you can probably feel a lot more confident too in reading your own tests. So, all right, Jill, let's go ahead and get started on the thyroid.
Okay, so I made a PowerPoint. HTMA stands for Hair Test Mineral Analysis and the thyroid. And the best way that I get a picture within the hair analysis of the thyroid is through what is called the calcium to potassium ratio. Calcium and potassium are both really important for helping regulate thyroid hormone activity. Calcium potassium ratio can show how effectively thyroid hormones are actually being utilized by the target tissue cells. So the next slide is a little bit complicated. This is the one complicated slide that kind of talks about how the thyroid works. Our thyroid gland works in a negative feedback loop system. So when thyroid hormone is low, our hypothalamus gets a signal, basically because the hormones are low. And what it does is it creates thyroid releasing hormone that is sent to the anterior pituitary gland. And sorry, I am like the worst person at making sure that everything is timed good. So thyroid releasing hormone goes to the anterior pituitary gland, which then secretes thyroid stimulating hormone. That is one of the hormones that you will see on these basic, usually the hormone panels. You'll see the T3, T4, and the TSH. The TSH tells the thyroid to create more thyroid hormones, which is T4, T3. T3 is the more active form of thyroid hormone, while T4, there's more T4, but it's more of the inactive form of thyroid, although they both work on target cells. So T3, basically T3, T4, what this stands for is how many iodine atoms are within the hormone molecule. So we definitely need iodine. There's some kind of debate in the hair analysis field. Some practitioners play it really, really safe with the iodine. I know we've talked about this before. You tend to use iodine with everybody. Sometimes I'll use a very small dose with people, but I usually will give our iodine to almost everybody, along with some selenium to help with heavy metal chelation. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. Usually women, 1 in 5 women have hypothyroid, and it's actually picked up and seen in blood. So it's fairly common. I'm not sure what the numbers are for men, although on a tissue level, a lot more than 1 in 5 actually, I can see on a tissue level, actually have hypothyroid. I can see hypothyroid in tissue long before it's ever picked up in blood. Usually people are symptomatic of hypothyroid. They'll go to the doctor, they'll get some blood tests run. everything will look totally fine, although they have all of these symptoms: low body temperature, people that kind of just tend to run cold, dry skin and hair. Fatigue is probably the biggest one, where people are just constantly tired. They're not really sure why. Weight gain. Sometimes people, they're eating right, they're doing all the right things, they're going to the gym, although they're not necessarily feeling so motivated to do so, but they're doing this and they do it for a while and they're not getting results. Often this can be why, um, although the blood levels show fine. Whereas right here, this calcium to potassium ratio is what I look for. And this shows me how well you are utilizing basically the T3 hormone, which is the more active form of the thyroid hormone. This should be about the 4.2 range is optimal for thyroid. If this is elevated like this, what I do is I actually give potassium, and I also give one form of silica or another, usually like a silica, sometimes with a sulfur, silica, also with magnesium. Usually these people have elevated calcium tissue levels. So what I want to do is I want to lower that calcium tissue level to where the calcium is getting into the bone and it's being utilized more appropriately, instead of, I see these really high calcium levels on probably about 75-80% of the tests that come to me. And it's basically these people have plenty of calcium, but they're not utilizing it correctly. And what it does is it tends to build up in the soft tissues. And that can create all kinds of issues, such as higher blood pressure. Sometimes it's related to inflammation, and calcium is actually being sent to an area due to an inflammatory process, or if the pH within the body is more acidic. So there's a lot of reasons why sometimes that we don't utilize calcium appropriately, but the main reason is the other minerals that are needed for calcium to absorb appropriately, such as silica, is not being consumed on a regular basis. Whereas we get calcium in most things we eat, most things are fortified with calcium. And it's the silica that's being processed out of the food. So I always recommend supplementation with the silica. It's really important as well for heavy metal detoxification. Constipation is
So,
another
real.
really big sign.
So basically, if somebody is acidic, and that could have various reasons why they're acidic, but stress is one of those things. We talk
Big
a lot
time.
about emotions on our channel here.
Mhm.
And if somebody's stressed, your body's pH can be changed, and therefore you're going to be pulling out calcium from your bones. And then
Yes.
it just displaces in other areas of the body as well. So um, it could be because they're taking in a lot of calcium, like from dairy or something like that, but it could also be because it's just moving to the wrong place.
Yeah. And then also, our parathyroid is actually what regulates calcium within the body too. And we actually speak of a gland that is usually what regulates it. But for more so with the calcium, it's usually comes from dietary sources or just mismanagement and a lack of the other minerals that we need to have in place. Have you guys ever heard of a goiter? You know what a goiter is?
Yeah, that
I've
bug that
never
people
seen a
have.
goiter. Huh? Yeah, like the big neck. It's kind of a thing of the past, because all table salt has iodine fortified into it these days, because goiter used to be a thing. It's where people, their thyroid gland won't be functioning appropriately and the thyroid will get very large. Um, Hashimoto's, this is a big thing these days, which is it's an autoimmune disease that targets the thyroid cells. It's basically our own immune system attacking the thyroid cells. And in my opinion, this is a result of often heavy metal toxicity. There can be things that kind of set this off. I'll say a big one of these would be vaccinations. Going into real quickly the hyperthyroid, which is the opposite, where the calcium to potassium here is low. These, I rarely see this, although I do see it. If it's slightly out of range in kind of the faster area, I kind of leave it alone and I eliminate heavy metals, and it usually will tend to resolve itself. So people who have more hyperthyroid they're more hyperactive. They're the people who call me on the phone and are like just like a mile a minute. They're the people who are not sleeping well at night. Their minds are racing. They tend to get irritable pretty quickly. There are people who tend to be nervous or anxious, worry a lot about things, um, can be more like oily skin and hair. Loose stools is common. And then Graves' disease would be the opposite type of an autoimmune that creates a hyperthyroid. So again, I always feel like these autoimmunes are tied into heavy metals and then also imbalance in gut health, toxic heavy metals.
So, Jill, why would someone have more of a hyperthyroid voice versus a hypo?
Everybody is very biochemically different. And with the toxins and stuff in the environment and in the food, everybody's going to manage these differently. And some people, when their systems are bombarded with heavy metals or candida overgrowth, parasites, can be even stress responses. Our body over time, our immune system basically can become overactive and it can attack the thyroid cells. That's just one way of saying things. Any autoimmune can attack any kind of tissue cells. It can be glands, it can be organ systems. For some people, it can trigger like a hyperactive thyroid. Some people, it can slow things down. It's just different for everybody. Not everybody's going to respond to things the same way. Heavy metals are the biggest culprit. I think that really trigger these autoimmune. I myself have been diagnosed with vaccine-acquired autoimmune. After about, let's see, I'd say 7 months of experiencing side effects post-vaccination, the last vaccination I ever had in my life and will ever have in my life. 7 months into having side effects, I was having a lot of autoimmune, and then eventually I was diagnosed with autoimmune. I was having rashes, heart palpitations, chest pain. I actually came to Iodine where I work and I did a full heavy metal cleansing protocol here, and I basically bound up my heavy metals, and I started to take our electrolytes, our magnesium, our silica, and within 1 week I was back to my old self in the way of symptoms had gone away. I had also been having irregular periods. Our thyroid hormones are not directly related necessarily to like our sex hormones, but everything is linked in one way or another. Our body works in multiple different types of loop systems. First thing I did, and the first thing I recommend for people who, if they're having any kind of vaccine symptoms or autoimmune, is to do a full heavy metal detox. Often that will lower the side effects, kind of put it at bay, because people with autoimmune will have flare-ups depending on how much stress they have in their life, how well is their diet. There's a lot of factors that can really rev stuff up when it comes to autoimmune.
Yeah, and customize it too, right? Because if you're just taking some type of heavy metal detox that everyone else is doing, that is not necessarily customized, and you're not going to get as good of a benefit from it.
It's always nice to have a practitioner or somebody you're working with, just in case you are experiencing any detox symptoms that you might not have expected, or not everybody necessarily does. Although I know with our protocol, we always want a practitioner working with our people, or I'm here in the office too, and people can call me. And then I know you use part of our protocol, and then you've got kind of the other binders in place, where it's good to work with a practitioner as you're doing this, and it's good to always clean up your gut at the same time. This right here, this page is kind of what you just asked me a little bit ago, is the heavy metals basically disrupt the utilization of thyroid hormones, target cells. They store in the thyroid, which can create these autoimmune type issues, the hyper, the hypo. Promote life of pathogenic microbes in the GI tract, Candida albicans and parasites. So the heavy metals and the pathogenic microbes that live inside of our gut, they flourish when heavy metals are present. And when we do a heavy metal detox, it can be extremely helpful, but it is always good at the same time to make sure that you are supporting your immune system and your gut health by eliminating sugars, refined foods, and things like that. That is what I have found.
So, Jill, why do the heavy metals store in the thyroid?
They store in all of our glands, but specific heavy metals tend to go to the thyroid. And I'm going to show it coming up here a specific person's test, whereas mercury is one of the heavy metals that tends to really like to store in the thyroid. When we come into contact with these heavy metals, which come into our environment through our food, our water, they're in our cosmetics, they're in our body products, cleaning products, paint, glass, metals, pesticides, herbicides, vaccinations, amalgam fillings, medications, and supplements. When we come into contact with these heavy metals, they enter into our bloodstream, and from our bloodstream wants to get these metals out to protect our vital organs. So what happens is they are shunted from our blood and they are sent to tissues until we are in a state where we are healthy enough and the minerals, essential minerals, are available that can help create a detoxification pathway, which will basically bind to these heavy metals and carry them out of the body.
Are you ready to reclaim your health and revitalize your life? Well, I've got something that's going to change the way you feel forever. Imagine waking up each day with boundless energy, mental clarity, and emotional balance. It's not a dream, it's within your reach. Introducing the free detox checklist, your ultimate guide to a toxin-free lifestyle. This exclusive 11-point detoxification checklist is your key to a fresh start, and exactly what I wish I had when I first started my detox journey. It will help you effortlessly identify the biggest source of toxins in your life. You'll learn how to purify the air you breathe, uncover the ultimate solution for cleaner, pure water, and start drinking confidently. Say goodbye to uncertainty when sourcing real wholesome food and choosing the most effective supplements. Embrace holistic beauty products for a radiant, toxin-free glow that will turn heads. Explore natural oral care solutions for a sparkling smile and revolutionize your cleaning routine with natural supplies. Safeguard yourself from harmful EMFs and elevate your well-being through mindful choices for bedding and clothing. Dive into the art of cleansing your body, mind, and emotions, unlocking a whole new you. Imagine waking up every day to boundless energy, mental clarity, and emotional balance every single day. It's all within your reach with the secrets enclosed in this comprehensive detox checklist. Ready to start your journey toward a toxin-free life? Click the link below and grab your free detox checklist now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to reclaim your health.
If and when we have our essential minerals in place in our cells, the heavy metals don't tend to store. They'll get carried out immediately, but most people, their systems are out of balance, their minerals are deficient, they don't have they don't basically just don't have the right minerals in place because of our food system mainly. Our soils are extremely depleted. And then there's a lot more heavy metals that are natural. Things have changed in modern society.
So the thyroid, I've learned, holds about a 70% of iodine. Is that correct?
Yeah,
From what you would know?
I don't know
So
the percentage, but that sounds about right. I mean,
the
that's
large
the
percentage,
majority.
right?
Yep.
So I'm thinking if the thyroid is deficient in iodine, then
Mhm.
maybe because of the relationship with all these minerals,
Yes.
or relationship with these metals, because sometimes one thing goes up, another thing goes down. So if you're deficient in a certain nutrient, then you're going to be more likely to hold on to the metal.
Mhm.
So if we're deficient in iodine, which the
Yes.
thyroid holds a bunch of, then that's, to me, that makes sense why certain types of metals might congregate there more than somewhere else.
You're absolutely correct. I always love my parking lot theory, whereas, well, iodine is definitely antagonistic to mercury specifically. Selenium is as well. Our cells are supposed to, we're supposed to have the essential minerals in our cells, but when they are depleted, they're like a parking spot. The heavy metals, they are seen by the cells just like the essential minerals, and when they get in, they block the essential minerals from getting in. So if we can get them out using iodine, selenium, then we're able to get the essential minerals in, and then the heavy metals don't take up those spaces anymore. Amalgam fillings. They're not really using amalgam fillings anymore these days, but with my generation and older, which I'm a Gen X, most of us have or had silver amalgam fillings, which are 49.5% mercury. And this mercury, every time you chew, there's silver and mercury, and there's something about like the two types of metals being present at the same time create vapor every single time that you chew. And I mean, this is released and it goes to your brain too. So it's super important, especially with these autoimmune type diseases, especially Lyme's disease. There is a correlation with the Lyme's disease and the mercury specifically. So I would recommend that anybody who has Lyme's disease to do a heavy metal detoxification, or at least get on a decent iodine for chelation. Although, you know, these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA.
Disclaimer.
I'm just saying, this is what I've seen in my practice.
This is what I would do.
What I would do.
Yeah.
But I'm not a doctor. I am just a nurse. They are pretty much impossible to avoid, these heavy metals. They're everywhere, but what we can do is get the essential minerals into place, and using the hair analysis, that's the best way I can actually, that we can see where do we make adjustments, what minerals specifically do I need to give, and what kind of dosing do I need to use to actually combat these, or to antagonize, chelate, bind. We protect ourselves from heavy metals by removing them from the cells using essential minerals. Again, these minerals that I use are selenium, iodine, silica. Sometimes I use sulfur, zinc, and then to help balance the actual ratio itself, again, I use potassium, magnesium, silica, the minerals to help bring up that potassium level and to help bring that calcium level more into range.
All right, so let's pause here. So I have some of those here.
Okay. I have them. I grabbed them today
Oh
too.
yeah, you showed them the iodine. So we got the selenium,
Okay.
and then we have potassium. Potassium is a huge one. I
Yeah.
never really thought about potassium before for the
You,
thyroid before a hair test, but that one's huge. That's
this
how
is
you know
super
it's
important.
off.
You know what took me like 6 months to really realize and to shift?
Mhm.
When you start to chelate heavy metals, people are going to dump potassium. When you start to rebalance calcium, people are going to dump potassium. So you'll get their potassium down or their calcium down, but they're going to lose all their potassium, and then their thyroid ratio is no better. So I give like a double potassium. Usually these people have a high calcium to phosphorus ratio. So I use the phosphorus, which has potassium in it, plus an extra dose of the potassium. Otherwise, you're going to tank their potassium. Do
Wait,
you
so
report
why
that?
is it that potassium gets dumped so much when people are doing heavy metal detox?
It just creates losses. It creates losses. I think it may be in the rebalancing of the calcium, it cancels out the potassium, and then the heavy metals themselves, when we're basically eliminating the heavy metals, it creates potassium losses as well. And it took me a while to realize that in my practice, and I shifted it pretty quickly, and it was like, whoa, now I don't have that happen anymore.
Okay, so that would explain why I had some clients. I have one in particular that I can think of, and I have another one I think this happened to her too, potentially. Where this one lady had blood sugar issues in the middle of my detox with her. And so I'm sitting here muscle testing everything, and I'm like, she needs potassium. And so I gave her potassium, and it fixed her blood sugar problem. So,
Well, yeah, and that could be related to, well, magnesium is huge in balancing blood sugar. Potassium also is. And then potassium, magnesium, they work synergistically together. Sometimes they can work antagonistically, just depending on dosing, but definitely. And then the potassium plays a big role in adrenal health too, and in the hormone balance there, which can cause shifts in blood sugar.
so wait, they're synergistic. But I thought you said
They're
that
synergistic and
antagonistic,
antagonistic.
but it's best to take them away from each other.
I separate them. Yeah, because I was seeing people who were taking the potassium, magnesium all like at the same time in the morning. I wasn't getting as great of shifts, like elevations in the potassium that I wanted. So I moved the magnesium to nighttime, and then I saw the potassium levels were coming up really well with
Mhm.
the double dosing.
Yeah. And then silica, let's go back to that real quick. So this, I have like a gallon of this that we've been drinking every day. I got my
Yeah,
mom
the
on it. I
best.
got my husband on it. I'm like, here, take a whole bottle of this every day. But anyways,
It'll
this
make
is
you
amazing.
glow.
I had a friend that's saying, Jacqueline, your skin looks amazing. I'm like, this is postpartum too, you know? So
Raise your
I think a lot of it
frequency.
has to do with the silica.
That's how you
Uh,
raise frequency.
oh, well, and then that's gonna be a whole nother conversation. We're gonna talk about the hormones and how this is like part of that whole situation too. Um, but I think that this is really interesting how it helps with the calcium. So let's reiterate how silica helps with calcium again too, so they understand how that affects the thyroid.
Calcium and silica work synergistically. Silica helps the calcium go into the bone where it should be. Like our bone should, the majority of our bone should be calcium, although silica is also in the bone. Silica is what creates the flexibility. Calcium is what creates the strength. You need to have both. So silica is synergistic to calcium. All minerals work together. They help each other work better. Some do cancel each other out. Um, it's complex.
Yeah.
I was going to say something about frequencies. So when we do our bottling runs, we have a 528 hertz speaker running in the back as we are doing our bottling runs. I have a lot of people who are sensitive to frequency who will call us or even come into our office just to meet us, and they're like, I could feel the frequency of your minerals. So I was drawn to them. So yeah, this is a fun.
Yeah, so I remember when we first chatted, and I mean, these just look pretty. Like they're all col different colors, and like I have the whole rainbow behind me here that I
No.
muscle test with. And I I just remember thinking too, like I'm just drawn to this. And I do energy work and I work with frequency with clients, and then when you told me that you guys are running this 528 hertz, I was like, that makes sense.
Mhm, mhm. Yep.
We're drawn to like a plant. Like if you
Yes.
put a plant
Like,
near
yes.
sun in your house, it's
Yep.
gonna grow toward the sun. If you don't, then well, let's just keep it at that. If you have a plant and you have it in your window, you're gonna see that's growing near the sun. It knows what it needs. So
Yes.
if
And
you're
they have
gravitated
frequencies.
towards something like this, there might be a reason why you're gravitated. So I just again found it interesting that you had that 528 hertz in there.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's see. So how do we avoid? It is good to avoid heavy metals because if we are getting more heavy metals in our environment than we are getting of essential minerals, we don't need so much competition. I always say eat organic as often as you can, which means eating out. Make it very seldom because nothing when you go out to eat. I think there's one restaurant, maybe three restaurants total in San Diego County that have like legitimate organic food. It's very hard to find when you're going out. And when you're going to restaurants, they are buying like the cheapest stuff they can possibly get. The animals that you're eating are eating junk food, GMOs that are full of heavy metals. They're literally altered, genetically modified to be able to be sprayed with Roundup, which is full of heavy metals, glyphosate, all kinds of toxins.
And
So
Jill, let's touch on organic for a second. Remember you were just telling me about that new label?
yeah, it's called Keep Your Eyes Peeled, especially for the avocados. There's a company called Appeal that is spraying your organic food to keep it more shelf stable. That's APEEL, and it's basically owned by one of the bad guys. His name, first name Bill, second name is
Gates of Hell.
yes, thank you. Yeah, so
You
our
heard of that before?
no, but that's a good
Oh
one.
my goodness.
You know,
Oh,
I feel like right now I go to the health food store a lot because I eat a lot of fresh produce. And just recently, even with the stuff that doesn't have that label on it, some of the organic food just feels a little sketchy right now. Like I started a garden about a year and a half ago. My thumb is getting greener, but my garden is chaotic. I have like weeds and stuff growing through my food. I threw stuff down, didn't really know necessarily what stuff was. It's kind of chaotic, but the best way to avoid this stuff is to grow your own food. That way, you know exactly what is on your food. Because even with some of these smaller farms, like I know my boss has a bunch of citrus trees, and just his little private little city was even telling them, you need to be spraying this on your trees because there's a certain kind of bug, and it's not anything that's being told to us. we don't know what is being added to our food. And they can even call it organic, just depending, because it might be organic. Heavy metals are organic. Doesn't mean that it's good for you. So,
So, do you have a greenhouse or is it just
well, we're
like
in
out in
San
the
Diego,
open?
so we can grow food year round. I do have a little greenhouse. I found in my greenhouse it gets a little too hot for stuff. Following the seasons here, we can grow about anything year round because it never we don't it doesn't freeze here really. The hottest
Well,
it gets
that's not my concern.
yet. Well,
You
with
know what my concern is about having a greenhouse, right?
uh-uh.
All the stuff they're spraying in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
It's
I mean,
so nano though, it's gonna get to it. The thing is we can do the best we can, but there's things that are being sprayed, and there's things probably because most people, even if you have water filtration, you don't necessarily have it in your backyard from your sprinklers. Filters are expensive and stuff. We can only protect ourselves so much. As I say, a lot of prayers
yeah,
because
that goes back to frequency too.
yeah, and that's the thing too. I feel like when we do the best we can with food, I try to eat very intuitively. Like, am I going to be putting this something in my mouth and I'm going to be eating something that is going to confuse my body? Or is while I'm trying to fix an issue, which I've dealt with my hypothyroid, when you're trying to repair organs and glands and your body, you don't want to be introducing something that your body's going to have to take care of. You want to be giving your body everything that is as beneficial as possible so that your body can go back and repair the damage that's been done for years upon years, probably our whole entire lives. So eating intuitively is like, am I eating something? Am I picking something up that's been altered in such a way by man that is going to confuse my body? We can't do this perfect. There is no perfect way to do this. Maybe if you're rich, you could grow food perfectly. But I mean, where are you getting your seeds? I mean, the seeds are being grown by somebody. We're all living in this environment with air, whatever's in the air. We do the
Yeah,
best we can.
I think that's it too. You can get really, you can cause more anxiety and then calcium losses on a test like this will
Yeah,
show
that's
that by
yeah.
being stressed. But at the same time, I'm all about doing your research and trying to figure these things out because, I mean, what you don't know sometimes will hurt you. I
Did you
mean,
see my bullet point right there?
educate yourself. Oh, there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, I did, and I didn't even think about that when I said that. But
Yeah.
I do want to go back to the minerals that you mentioned to balance. So, does it depend
They're
on
up on
what
this second
is?
iodine.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But if someone's
oh,
high or low on their calcium to potassium ratio,
potassium, silica. Those are the two number ones. Magnesium too, because silica and magnesium are going to
potassium
pull
here.
that. Oh, this is talking more about the heavy. Oh, I didn't put it on here.
We'll,
Potassium,
we'll just make
magnesium,
a
and
note.
silica. Huh?
We'll just make a note.
Okay,
Listening to this, potassium
make a
should be in the
note.
list.
Make
So
note.
if the calcium, your specific, I mean, I know you're looking at everything, but I'm thinking the thyroid ratio is the calcium to potassium ratio. If
Yeah.
it's high, meaning it's
Mhm.
hypothyroid, then are you changing up that combination there of what you're giving versus if it's low?
Yes, I'm giving potassium. Whereas if it's low, I'm going to give you calcium.
Okay, and then all those
Dependent.
other things you'll still give though?
Of these ones,
Yeah.
I give iodine and selenium and silica to everybody. Everybody. I use differing dosages depending on how many heavy metals am I seeing. What do I suspect is there more of heavy metal wise? Usually on a first test, I'm not seeing all the heavy metals, but I get a little glimpse at what there is here. And then looking at different patterns, I can usually get a pretty good indicator of like, I believe there's more of this here, and I might up the dose of one of the other minerals to chelate specific heavy metals. Sulfur I often use because there are different ratios and minerals that I can see where there are inflammatory processes going on, whereas sulfur is a natural anti-inflammatory. And then zinc, I give zinc to almost everybody. I didn't used to, but I am constantly studying and constantly upgrading and updating my practice from what I'm learning. And magnesium and zinc specifically are used for adrenal balance and to help calm the adrenal glands. There are ratios such as the zinc to copper that are related to zinc. I used to kind of play it safe with the zinc because I was afraid that I would shift that ratio by using it, but I use it all the time now and I haven't seemed to have found an issue there.
You
That's a
know,
whole
actually, I just read in, let me see if I can find that book here real quick. This book. I told you about this book, right? Nutritional Balancing.
No.
Oh my God, you don't have this
Is that a
book?
mineral wheel on the outside?
This is like the Bible of the bar test. Anyways, get this
Oh
book.
man. Hey, I have a problem with books. Like I don't drink and I don't eat sugar. My new addiction is books.
I have a couple good books for hair testing. That's one of them, though.
Oh,
I
wait,
constantly
nutritional
pull that
book.
one out. But anyways, there's a part in that, and I would say a lot of it's kind of redundant, but you learn by repetition.
Yes.
And it shows the what's going on in different ways too.
Yeah. Sometimes
Hold
I'll restudy the
on. Okay,
same
hold on. We're
stuff.
gonna have to cut that out real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Say that again.
It's all
So
right.
yeah, the book also shows how to look at this in different ways as well too.
Mhm.
So one of the things that it was saying that I just randomly, of course, came across because God always seems to be on time with knowledge you need was that there's a section in there that shows all the recommendations that they tend to give to most people, and that one of them said zinc, and I was like, that's interesting because I always was like you, concerned about the copper situation, that if you take too much zinc, you're going to lower your copper, which can happen, right? But I
It
just found it
can.
very interesting that most people will probably benefit from zinc.
Yes. Yeah, I used to be cautious, but what I've found, well, and I've been giving zinc a lot because, like, let me show you this for example. See this? That's uranium. This is, it was like 8 out of 10 on my test for a while. Now I'm seeing it on about 9 out of 10 where people are high in uranium. Zinc is the specific chelator to uranium. And let me just say this real quick for graphene oxide as well. So sometimes I give double doses of the zinc and I'm play it kind of cautious with the copper sometimes, but I have not found it to really necessarily create deficiency in people. Sometimes if someone is really low in copper, I will give this copper at the same time, but I'll give it at a different time of day, meaning on the same menu, but at a different time of day as to not drop it too low. But I haven't seen like huge shifts in the wrong direction by giving the zinc. So I've gotten a lot more I feel more comfortable using it now regularly, especially for what I'm seeing with balancing the adrenal glands. I'm balancing people's adrenal glands regularly and it's using the magnesium zinc silica works really, really well. Sometimes the
Yeah,
iodine.
and again, we did that last video and we talked about that too.
Yeah.
I'll put that video in the notes here.
So big important thing with the thyroid and the heavy metals, gut health. I always talk about gut health when I talk about mineral balancing and overall health and balancing of the glands and the organs because these you basically can't completely restore your body if you don't balance your gut. So if you're just eating, I notice when people will follow everything that I say when it comes to diet, like cleaning up your diet and getting rid of the refined sugars and refined carbohydrates, eliminating the things that come from a box bag or a can when possible, is people will balance out a lot faster. They'll have pretty quick corrections on balancing hormones in their glands, which when you balance your glands, you balance your hormones. And that goes for not just your sex hormones. I'm talking about all of our glands release hormones. So there's a lot of different types of hormones, which
So
when we
on the
balance,
gut,
huh?
oh, sorry.
Go
Go
for
ahead
it.
and finish your statement.
Just balancing the glands, balances the hormones, and then balancing your gut is a huge player. And when your gut is out of balance, everything in your body is out of balance. It will make you sick before anything else. And then when their heavy metals are there and they're present, your gut is going to be out of balance. So it's really good to work on both of those things at the same time. And in turn, you will balance your glands, your organs.
So the probiotic that you guys have that's made from the mushrooms, are you
Mhm.
giving that to people often to help with their gut microbiome?
I give our super biome to almost everybody. There's 8 medicinal mushrooms. I've looked every single one of them up. They have all been put on streak plates with candida, and they are all candidicidal, some more so than others. They are prebiotic. What they do is they actually feed the good, healthy bacteria in your gut and promote them being healthy, flourishing. So in our gut, we have good healthy bacteria, and we have yeast and pathogens. And when we take antibiotics or we eat bad food, a diet high in refined carbohydrates and sugar, the good bacteria die off or killed off, and the pathogenics such as Candida albicans tend to overgrow. They overgrow and they will throw your whole system off. And that is the beginning, in my opinion, of every disease in the book. It's all tied together: the mineral deficiencies, the heavy metals, and imbalanced gut. If you can fix those 3 things, which I'm fixing those things, that is the key to health. That is the key to having a strong foundation to where everything that's being thrown at you, you can manage. Or if something goes wrong or you get sick, it's basically a detoxification process. It's telling us sometimes we need to slow down, but we're going to bounce back from things quickly.
Yeah.
The amalgam, I know I talked about the amalgam earlier. I just want to mention real quick here, if you go to amalgam.org, if people have these silver amalgam fillings in their mouth, I recommend finding yourself a naturopathic dentist who will safely remove them. That's where they protect your breathing. The people in the office, they gown up, gear up, and gear up you. So while you're getting them removed, that everybody's being protected. You can find yourself a dentist on this amalgam.org site.
So on the gut situation, when people have high heavy metals, it messes up their probiotic bacteria,
Mm-hmm.
right? It lowers their probiotic bacteria. Stress will also do that too. But that's a connection that is really important, I think, for people to kind of hone in on, is that if you have heavy metals, you're messing up your gut microbiome. So
Yes.
that's why on a heavy metal detox, it's also really important to take something like the super biome.
Mm-hmm. And you're protecting all the pathogenic stuff in your gut with these heavy metals, because they live inside a biofilm on your gut lining, and they're basically surviving inside of this heavy metal ridden like biofilm. It's pretty gross. All right, so I got some examples here. So this first one right here, this test and this test, this is a before and after of the same client. See here where we've got the uranium and we've got a high level. This is very, very high of mercury. This Hg is mercury. It might not look that high because it's barely out of the reference range. I don't follow that reference range. Any heavy metals that are detectable are unsafe. So even sometimes if something is low down here, like aluminum, you want to have a 0.3, like having a 1 of aluminum, it might be well below this reference range, but still it's like that's more than twice as high as what I normally see or where I want to see it. This mercury is way, way too high. This is a breast cancer patient of mine, a customer of mine. I got her on the full balancing program. This was her. I mainly look, when I'm looking at these tests, I look first at these heavy metals, and then I look at the significant ratios. These are what I'm focused on the first like few tests. Until I get these ratios balanced, I'm not messing necessarily with the individual elements unless there's specifics in the individual elements that need to be addressed, because there's specific patterns or things where I can see hormones. I can see hormones through some of these individual minerals. Anyway, uranium, this is too high as well. Once again, here we have the uranium. If you look here, we've got calcium to potassium ratio is 134. This is an extremely slow thyroid. This person was diagnosed hypothyroid. It was showing up in blood. We have since, I put her on the full protocol. She changed her diet, changed everything she needed to do. She went the naturopathic route. She has since gone back for her scans. Everything looks amazing, beautiful. She's in remission. She had the actual lump removed, a couple of lymph nodes, but other than that, she went completely naturopathic. These ratios also, if you look at this sodium to potassium here, this is a fight or flight adrenal pattern, and often both these being out of range are these heavy metals contribute to that. So using the iodine, the selenium, the silica, magnesium, potassium. This is her jumping over to these ratios here. This is her latest test here. She did this in about 6 months. Her calcium to potassium went from 134 to 8. That is almost normal. Look at her adrenal ratio here. She's no longer in fight or flight. This old number here, this showed me a lot of inflammation because it shows me dominance of aldosterone hormone from the adrenal glands, which is inflammatory. Anyway, like I always say, everything is tied together, looped together. We get rid of the metals and we balance. Everything kind of comes into line.
Yeah,
So
that calcium to potassium ratio is something.
this
I
is so significant.
don't
I
know if
mean,
I've ever seen something like that before.
it took me about 11 months of being diligent and kind of switching things up. And then she switched right over real quick and I was amazed. But I had done most of the trial and error on myself. And then,
You could speed the process up. That's why it's good to have a
yeah.
practitioner that
Mhm.
has, a body of work where they have helped people already. Because, I mean, you could either try to experiment on yourself or you could just fast track the process, which actually probably will save you more money in the end and time and headache and have your life back sooner.
You
So,
don't want
like,
to play
you have to,
guinea pig.
yeah, you don't have to
I'll do
spend
it for
money and
you.
time to figure this out.
Uh,
Um, was okay, so on that note, what was your ratio for the calcium and potassium before you did all your detoxing?
Me personally,
Yeah.
mine was a 90,
Oh wow,
90
yours
to
is
like
extreme
a
too.
6.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it took a while. And then I threw it out of whack again because I was playing guinea pig. So let me show you real quick. This is her second heavy metal test here. If you see, the uranium went up, which is good because this is showing me excretion. It shows me there was more there. Now it's coming out. So I'm expecting on her next test, it's possible it could go up higher if there's more there, or it can start to come down. Look at her mercury. This is amazing, absolutely incredible. Look at her mercury. That can be from the amalgam fillings or it could be from vaccines because the vaccines have thimerosal in them or ethyl mercury in pretty much every single one, except for that new one. They say there isn't any heavy metals in there, but that's been proven wrong. Anyway, so I was very pleased with this test. And this person is not just in remission. She says, I feel better than I've ever felt in my whole life. And now when she eats something, like she told me the other day that she made a salad and she added balsamic vinegar back in. And she's like, she immediately knew it, like her body, she said, I got pain all over my body almost instantly. She's like, I just know like that doesn't fit with me, where she's so in touch with her body. She knows how she's supposed to feel now. I feel like, and speaking for myself as well, when you feel like crap for so long, you don't even know what it feels like to feel good anymore. And you just get used to feeling crappy all the time. And then when you start to feel good, it's like, holy moly, I feel like living again. I feel like doing projects again. I feel like I want to do stuff with my life. I feel motivated to take care of my family and make changes in my life. And that's
Yeah,
kind of what she expressed to me. And I
yeah.
was really, really proud of her.
That's why we do this. I mean,
Mhm.
like we're talking about all this technical stuff, but let's get real. Like, why are you doing this? Because
Yeah.
it's good to know if you're trying to heal from any chronic illness. It's not always easy, and you're gonna have to do certain things and spend money and time and effort. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why you're deciding to do this, and I would
Yeah.
keep your eye on that because it will get you through the confusion and the chaos and the work and the trial
Mhm.
and error and going from this practitioner to that practitioner to still have hope. Having kids is a big one for a lot of people. People
Mhm.
look at their kids and they're like, I have to get well. These kids need me. So,
It's like
anyways,
I'm
have the
so tired.
motivation.
Hmm.
You what?
But it's so hard too when you're tired. It's like I have so
Yeah,
many chores to do in the day, and like the kids need me, and it's like, how am I going to get out of this rut? So
yeah,
putting the effort in for a while and working with a practitioner is well worth it
yeah.
to get
Especially
you.
when you're feeling like defeated. If
Mhm.
you're with a practitioner that has hope for you, they can kind of fill in that gap while you're going through your process. Because, I've gone through it, my husband's gone through it. Like I have close family members that have had issues with their health, and it's not easy. You're not
Yeah.
always seeing the behind the scenes when someone's getting healthy and they feel defeated and want to give up.
Yeah.
You need cheerleaders around you.
And we didn't end up in this industry and on this side because we were perfectly healthy all the time. That's not how we end up on the side. We end up on the side because we were sick and we were on a journey and we were looking for answers and we found them. And now we want to help other people find the way too. And so it's nice to have a tribe behind you because we've been through a lot of the detoxification stuff. We've been walked the walk. We've lived it. So it's like I know people call me and it's like, I'm feeling this way or that way. I'm like, okay, that's normal. Or even I've called you and said, what do I do now? And you're like, well, add a little more of this. What's other different stuff? But it's nice to have somebody who's walked through it before because they're going to walk you through it better.
Yeah, and you make a good point about practitioners too. So if you're a practitioner and you're trying to get well as yourself, because like you just said, many of us are doing this job because we've
Mm-hmm.
had to heal ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're one of those people, it is good to have a circle of friends that are also practitioners around you too. I do the same. I bounce ideas off of you. This is why we're doing this. I have other friends that know other pieces of information of the puzzle and maybe do other types of testing that I don't do
Mm-hmm.
and can give me a different light into what I might not be seeing personally or for my clients. So it's always good to have a good circle of network around you.
So we will reach out to the tribe for you because we're always reaching out about each other's people who we're working with, which is nice because we don't know everything, we're learning. And so the benefits, I think we kind of were in the midst of this, just restoring overall well-being and health, getting an individualized picture into the cells, like what's going on within the cells. What do I need to do specifically for this person to help them and make the shifts that they need? I can't just necessarily guess. I can give you some like general minerals, like I said, to help balance you, but sometimes I'll get aggressive with this iodine dosing, depending on what I'm seeing. And 1 to 2 drops with that might not be doing what you need. And I'm not going to know that unless I actually see a test for you. Sometimes I see astronomical levels of like lead, arsenic, cadmium, where it's like, okay, I need to use a whole different type of regimen, sometimes including calcium to get rid of this stuff. Yeah, so there's a lot to it. And along with getting healthy comes the mental health. It's a complete shift in how your mind feels and your overall, just the way you think, your frequency shifts, which shifts your mind, and eliminating the pathogenic stuff in our gut elevates the mood like nothing else. Not feeding those little demonic little parasitic creatures that are living inside of you, sucking the life out of you.
Well, they have a mind of their own too. Like they
Oh,
literally do. And
yes.
they can take over our mind as well.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the term neuroparasitology?
Yeah, remember, I'm still listening to that book on and off of
Oh
the
yeah,
Your
that's
Brain on Parasites.
that.
It's an interesting book, but I don't know if I necessarily recommend it. A lot of it is super mainstream kind of medical sided stuff, whereas my philosophy on disease is a little bit different, whereas I don't believe in the germ theory of disease, whereas a lot of it is very like germ theory focused. And I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, there's some good stuff in here when they're studying specifically the parasites and stuff. But
yeah.
the stuff that's cool though is where they talk about how parasites and pathogens and fungus will shift your brain to think certain ways and to make you eat certain foods and to put yourself in certain environments that are conducive towards their health and not yours. That stuff is true. But I know we
It's
kind
so
of
weird. Yeah.
previous I think podcast I was like, it's a great book, and we're like, yeah, you should try it. And I'm like, oh, it's okay, I'll just tell you about it.
Well, you guys, you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And um, you know, I don't think that certain things that we should discredit, but you have to be able to look at the whole picture because, you might learn some profound thing, studying something or studying under someone.
Mhm.
And, but then you might find that, okay, this person's not God. They don't know
Yeah.
everything. So you kind of have to weed some things out. So I've made the mistake myself of like, oh, this one practitioner seems so good. They know everything. Then I'm following everything they do. And I'm like, wait a second, hold on. There's something else that is not quite right or missing or whatever. And now I'm bringing in this new element, and I'm like,
Mhm.
they might have discredited that. I've had people
Yeah.
very like, you got to get rid of the toxins, but then they're not talking about the frequency, or they're not talking
Yes.
about the rebuilding or like other parts of it, because maybe that's what their business model is, or
Mm-hmm.
their niche, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing can get people kind of like in a little box sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
So, anyways, take everything with a grain of salt, pray about it. God, Holy Spirit will always lead you into the truth.
And bless your food and talk to your
Uh,
water.
and pray about the chemtrails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm like, if we only had enough Christians praying about this chemtrail situation. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Everybody, find your higher power for sure.
Well,
I
thank you
am.
so much, Jill.
Yeah.
I really love doing these with you, and I look forward to doing more of them. We're going to talk about the hormones at some point, and we'll probably dive more into the gut, and also these heavy metals. And then there was another one that we talked about too, doing the mushrooms. I definitely want to go into those medicinal mushrooms more too. So if you're listening to this, hang tight. We got some more stuff for you. So, and other than that, though, you can look at the previous recordings we've done, and then I have a whole bunch of other content on this website so that you can look at the whole fuller picture. There's amazing interviews from other doctors that can shed some new light on whatever you're dealing with. So, anyways, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Jill, again, and we will see you in the next video.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Have you had enough tackling your health challenges on your own? Have you seen doctor after doctor with no real understanding or solution of why you are chronically fatigued, sick, and mentally and emotionally unwell? It's time to get to the root of this all in the Cerebral Detox Program. We'll do a thorough muscle testing evaluation to see how your nervous system is doing, how stressed different organs and glands are, and how much of that stress is a frequency imbalance versus a biochemical one. You'll discover pathogens like mold, Lyme, bacteria, and parasites, and you'll see what kinds of heavy metals and other environmental toxins are burdening your body. You'll also understand why you're having problems with your mitochondria to make energy for you to heal and thrive. Every month, we test and customize protocols, and there's a chat in between for minor questions, so you are not alone. You'll also receive a series of videos that help you understand how to get a good foundation for your detox and overall health. If you are ready to thoroughly detox your body, maximize your brain power, and live life to the fullest, book your free 15-minute call today to see if you're a good fit for the Cerebral Detox Program. I'm looking forward to helping you regain your life so that you can thrive and live life abundantly the way God has intended for you.